Auntie wanted to get 4. Hold on, please. All right, so we got our 4 African goslings home. And unfortunately, when we got home, we took the male out of the box and he just was not doing well. Hi, Lubby. He was not doing well. He was very lethargic and kind of laying down on his side. So I immediately called Chickapalooza where we got them, and I talked to the lady there and said, hey, is there anything we can do? Can I give him? Can I syringe feed him anything that'll help him perk up and maybe eat? She told me to try a little bit of peanut butter, kind of dilute it in water, make it really watery. And I was having to open its mouth to put it in. It would eat a little bit and it would go back to being very lethargic, wouldn't keep its eyes open. And then after about 15-20 minutes of trying to do this, unfortunately, it did pass away. So thankfully, this sometimes happens. It's not anything that we caused. Unfortunately, this was a little bit of a runt, so it might not have had the strength and the health to make the stressful ride home. If you've ever purchased online, when you get birds, a lot of times you're gonna have a few that didn't make the trip. If you get all of them, you're very lucky. More than likely, you're gonna lose 1 or more, depending on how many birds you order. Now, these obviously came from a local store, but I don't know where they came from before that. They could have came from a local breeder. They could have came from out of state. I didn't ask, as I didn't really care where they came from. I'm not breeding them. They're more for protection for our chickens. They're more of just a pet, an experiment, kind of just animals for our family to enjoy. So that didn't really bother me. But this particular gosling was just a little bit on the smaller side, and the stress of just driving home and being put in another new environment was probably just too much for it, unfortunately. So luckily we were able to make the drive back from where we live to where the store is. It's about 40-minute drive. So we took the deceased one back to the store owner, and they gave us another gosling. So I appreciate that. That's very good customer service, and I thank you for that. However, there was no more males. Not that it was that big of a deal, but I thought it'd be cool if we got some fertilized eggs in the future. But she was holding a male and a female for another customer, and the male that we had originally gotten that ended up passing was the only male left. So she gave us another female, so now we have 4 females, but then again, we got another gosling, so we are grateful for that. So now we have these very amazing creatures to grow up and enjoy. All right, so these little goslings. So what we did was recommended by somebody online, this is actually their little water dish. Hi, how are you? And that is so they cannot swim in it or dunk or get it super dirty. So that's actually their water. And this is their food. Like that little jingle in the background. And so when you very first get chicks or ducks or goslings, you're gonna wanna put some kind of electrolytes and a little bit of a booster in their water. Helps them get settled in because the stress, their immune system does tend to drop a little bit. So we ended up going with this Chick Boost. So it's got probiotics, vitamins, minerals, and electrolytes. You just put a little bit in a gallon of water, mix it up, and then you go ahead and stick it right in there for them. And it's a nice little booster to kind of get them settled in. The food that they were already on and that we went with is actually a local thing. I believe this is called Denali feed. This is a poultry feed. This is formulated and produced up here in Alaska. It's an all-natural, holistic kind of natural food. So we decided to get this to start out. This is formulated for ducks and geese. It is a starter food specifically for smaller goslings and just I can't find the word for what a baby duck is right now. But anyways, this is for babies. It's a starter. It has more protein, allows them to grow. These guys grow pretty quickly. They get big very quickly. So this is a food specifically formulated for them. And it has a little bit more smaller pellets than the adult food. However, these goslings are still fairly small. So what I did was I stuck a bunch of this in the blender and grinded it up into a little bit smaller bites for them for right now. So it's a little bit smaller chunks for them to digest. And in about a week, they'll be able to just eat the pellets and it should be fine. So, and just like chickens, another thing you really need to add to their food, or you can sprinkle around in their brooding container or box, is going to be some grit. Grit is just a fine rock. You can find small rocks in your yard to use if that's what you want to do. Now, we still have quite a bit of snow in our front yard, and a lot of it is glued to the ground still. It's still very frozen to the ground. So I decided to get this chick grit, which is it's good for the goslings as well. And all it is little chunks of rocks and stuff. That's all it is. And it has a few added things in there for them that are really good for them. And all you do is sprinkle that on their food. You can just sprinkle it around in there and they'll eat it as they need it for their gizzard to help digest their food. It kind of moves around in their gizzard and helps grind up the food. It makes it easier for them to digest. You guys have already pooped a bunch in there. So, and the container we're using is just HDX. It's a Home Depot generic. I believe this is the 40-gallon tub tote. You don't really need to have a top on it unless you're worried about maybe a cat or small children in your house. And for now, I just stuck it on our shelf. Its light is right here, and that way if for some reason it falls, it's gonna hit this grate until we figure out a little bit better setup, but it's on our gardening rack just for the time being until we figure out a different setup. We're probably gonna move them here to another location in the house, but for now, this is where they are. And then we also just got this nice dome light from our local pet supplier, and then it has a 250-watt red bulb in it to keep them nice and warm, because these little guys need to stay between 85 and about 100 degrees. And then we have it more on one side so they can kind of move around, but for the most part, they need to stay pretty warm until they start getting their different feathers here in the next couple weeks. And then also you can see in there we have paper towels. Now we start out with paper towels and we show them where their food and water is. And that is particularly, we want them to start eating the food in here. A lot of chicks, ducklings, goslings. Hi, I don't have anything for you right now. What they will do is if you put the wood shavings in there or anything other than newspaper or paper towels, a lot of times they will try to eat that instead of their food, and their belly will fill up and they will think they are full and they will not be eating the nutritious food that you want them to eat to grow big and strong. So it only takes them a day or two to figure out what their food and water is. And then what we also do is when we get them, you take their nice little heads and you just stick it down here like that and you show them where it is. And once one or two know where it is, they kind of teach the rest. And then easy peasy, they kind of teach the flock. And they'll also start to figure out their own hierarchy too as they get older. What are you doing? So, and then after probably 3 or 4 days, we're gonna move them over to these white shavings. We use these for our rats. We're gonna be using them for our chicks as well. But we chose to go with the wood shavings for now just because they're in the house and they are a little bit more absorbent than using hay or any other kind of bedding. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and leave our little goslings alone to settle in. They look like they're getting pretty tired. They're starting to kind of settle down. So we're gonna go ahead and let them sleep and we will pick up in the morning and check on them.
You've been checking that.
pet it. Hunter, let's. No. Hunter, let's. I was like doing this on the side of him.
Good dog. That's a good dog. You're okay.
Auntie, look, they're doing it.
Come on, babe. Oh, don't let him bounce like that, okay?
He couldn't hurt itself.
It's okay. We're all learning together.
1 second. 1 second. 1 second.
This is the first time for everybody. You can hold him. Are you gonna poke him?
Good dog. That's a good dog.
I like how there's like something that blocks them, but like they won't tend to jump over it.
I know. Careful.